to Inside the Game on the National Soccer Network. Now, here are your hosts, Jonathan Turner and Nathan Wangler.
Good morning and welcome to Inside the Game, episode number 139 here. Sorry, 140 on this Tuesday morning. Jonathan Turner alongside Nathan Winkler. He's in Grand Rapids. I'm in Metro Detroit. We're also joined here this morning, first time. Angelina is our producer here this morning. And Angelina, welcome to the show.
What up?
She's like, what up? All right. Well, she's
like,
goodbye.
She's like,
you keep talking.
Huh?
She's like, goodbye. You keep talking.
She was very clear. She's like, John, she's like, I will produce for the show. But she's like, I do not want to be on camera that much. So I was like, no worries, no worries. I have no control over the camera.
No problem with that.
So I can't force that. But anyways, we're excited to have you back here. Hey, if you haven't been watching us lately, our passion for this game has continued to increase. Right, we continue to talk about it. I only think that this is going to continue to get more passionate, more conversations that are going to challenge both Nate and I, which I think is really, really important for the growth of this show. You know, me and you, we've been talking about this, Nate. We've been talking about the direction we want this show to go, and you know, for a long time, trying to find our footing and what we thought was the right way to take this show. And you know, like in any podcast or in any environment, trying to find that show, trying to find the balance, trying to find what direction you want to take can be, in a lot of cases, can be a challenge. And so we're going to continue to do that on this show. And we hope that you continue to stick around and be a part of this. We've been talking U.S. men's national team. That will continue today. Me and Nate had a chance to sit down and to figure out who we think our top 5 players of all time are on the U.S. men's national team. You will find that we think very similarly in regards to this, with a couple small nuances or whatever. We're also going to talk ACC men's soccer here today. They released their poll here last week. We'll get into that as well this morning. Hey, we also are going to get into the MHSAA. Boys soccer here in the state of Michigan. We started here in Michigan. We will continue to keep it rolling here in the great state of Michigan as well. And the Michigan High School Soccer Coaches Association released their teams to watch today. We'll talk about those as well on the show. So a very busy morning. But Nathan, anything new in your life here that happened, yesterday after the show?
Nope. Same old for the most part. Getting ready for everything today. It was a good chat yesterday. Always great having Ryan on. And obviously Angelina slotting in today, so grateful for that as well. There's a lot of good stuff that's going on. Obviously with the start of the Premier League, we've been keeping a close eye on that. Gave you guys an update on what's going on with a lot of the different American players that are playing across the ways. So for the most part, it's been same old on this end of the coin. But obviously, still a lot of things to cover, and it's getting into that part of the year. You know, you go from club soccer and league soccer all summer, and then you start to get into the fun stuff, which is the high school stuff and the college stuff. And because we live in these communities, obviously it means a little bit more to some of these places, so it'll be good to touch on that. And we really had our hand on the pulse of everything that was going on, especially in the Michigan high school soccer scene last year. So it'll be nice to kind of dive into all that, and specifically when it comes to the ACC. I mean, I know we've had separate talks about this, but that's the best conference in all of college soccer, and you saw it. Ryan kind of detail that in his video up on social the other day about just how many of those teams are projected to not only make the national tournament but potentially make a run towards a national title. And the favorite, Clemson, coming out of that conference, already has a national title in the last couple of years. So, and they have a lot of returning players. They have a lot of really good pieces. And so I know we covered, obviously, the women's side recently, but it'll be cool to kind of get into the weeds on the ACC, because there's a battle for the top spot there. And then, ranking our top players, that'll be a good conversation as well.
No, it will. We'll talk about that here coming up on the other side of this break. Again, a very busy show this morning. We'll try to keep it that way. We'll keep it light at sometimes, but we'll get into it a little bit. And I think me and you, Nathan, will get into it a little bit here when we start talking about the top 5 players of all time in the U.S. men's national team history. Hey, who are the top 5 players to wear the crest, to ever wear the crest for the U.S. men's national team? We'll talk about that on the other side of the break.
Flint City Bucks are Michigan's top soccer franchise with 4 national championships, 9 conference titles, and 15 Great Lakes Division titles. They have produced 107 players for Major League Soccer, and they focus on attracting top talent and shaping soccer's future. Michigan Bucks Academy joins NLS Next new competition tier starting in September of 2025. This offers elevated levels of play and flexibility for high school participation. The Academy will provide premier development, high-performance training, and exposure to scouts through regional tournaments and MLS Next events. For more information on tryouts, training programs, and key updates as we prepare for our first season in MLS Next new tier, visit MichiganBucksAcademy.com.
Welcome back here into our Shelby Township studios here, and Jonathan Turner alongside Nathan Wangler, and it is time to talk the U.S. men's national team top 5 players of all time. And before we dive into this, Nathan, this is not a topic I think that is something that will really ever change. I think as in any sport, right, you're going to continue to have conversations that about this or about players who you think are the top players of all time, and that will always, and you say generationally, but it'll all be a moving target is maybe the best way to describe it.
It's always evolving, and I think that there's a generational gap when we talk about, best ofs and greatest ofs, and we've seen this all the time. We see this in different sports routinely. Opinions change as generations go. I think we see that in basketball a lot of times. I was kind of surprised yesterday when Ryan said that Bron was second all time, because he's an old soul, man. I mean, he listens to old music. He's got old taste. I don't know. Grandpa and Dad must have done a great job raising him, because he doesn't really prescribe to a lot of the new ideologies. But we see it all the time and in every sport, and so I think it's no different than what we're talking about right here. And I think specifically when it comes to the U.S. men's national team and just American players in general, it's just fun to look back at who are the best and who deserves a spot in that conversation. And again, regardless of where they are in the top 5, being one of the top 5 players ever from this country is an honor. So I think we have a lot of similarities in our list, but I also feel like there's maybe some generational differences in there. So we'll certainly cover that.
We will start with me. I had a chance to do a TikTok video here earlier this week, or last week for that matter, and on your screen now are in fact those top 5s. Let me go ahead and remove that from your face there, Nathan. There we go. I felt like that was a little bit too much. But here are my top 5, and we'll start with number 5. And I know that we already have it on your screen, but I think it's important to show why I'm picking, in this case, picking Eric Wynalda at number 5. Eric Wynalda, one of the early faces of U.S. soccer in the 1990s, and scored the first U.S. goal in a World Cup since 1950, to put things in perspective. 106 caps, 34 career goals in his history. Tim Howard, Tim Howard, a world-class goalkeeper, remembered for this recent record-breaking 16-save performance in the 2014 World Cup against Belgium. He had 121 caps in his career. At number 3, I have Christian Pulisic, the present-day leader of U.S. soccer and the face of the current generation, already with a Champions League title to his name. He has 78 caps, 32 goals, and 18 assists in his history with the U.S. men's national team. Above him at number 2, Clint Dempsey, 141 caps, 57 goals, 21 assists. And Clint Dempsey is known for his fearlessness, creativity, and goal-scoring ability. Dempsey is tied for the all-time U.S. men's national team scoring record, right behind number 1, Landon Donovan. 157 caps, 57 goals, 58 assists. The gold standard for U.S. soccer greatness, Donovan's World Cup heroics, and MLS dominance keep him atop this list. And we'll bring us back into this now to talk about this. And I think it's first, and before we kind of dive into this, Nathan, for you at home, you tuning, whether you're watching live or after the fact, on a short video that we put together in regards to all this, God bless you, Angelina.
Thanks, sorry.
She's sneezing off there. No, it's all, hey, sneezing is okay. But if you would love to hear your thoughts on who you think the top 5 players of all time are, if me and Nathan are off our rocker, or if we're on pace. I'll tell you this. I know the first question that's going to come up here is, why isn't Christian Pulisic number 1? That's probably the first question that people are going to ask. And for me, he might absolutely be number 1. He's just not there yet. He's just not there yet. You know what I mean? He still has a whole bunch of career ahead of him. He's already played a bunch of games. And arguably, with the way that he's tracking, he should beat Landon Donovan for the most goals in U.S. men's national team jersey. Now, does that mean he's going to do it? No. But for right now, Landon Donovan holds 2 titles. And so that's why he's my number 1. You could honestly slide anyone into any of these positions. I mean, you could say Clint Dempsey could be 1. You could say Christian Pulisic could be 1. You could say Eric Wijnaldum. I don't think Eric Wijnaldum would be in the top, 3. Tim Howard's a goalkeeper. I don't see how you can make him a number 1, right? I mean, I don't think there's ever going to be the history of, top 5. You're going to pick a goalie as your number 1. But that's my top 5. I'm curious your thoughts before we dive into yours.
It's tough to make, and I agree with your whole Tim Howard bit there. He has a fascinating story, too, because there was something that he wrote down, when he was younger in school, that it's going to take a whole country to hold me down. And, I mean, for a guy that played, nearly 500 matches in the Premier League, yeah, I mean, it nearly did take an entire couple of countries to hold Tim Howard down. But in terms of someone that it was just the anchor for this team, that's, I also got him in my top 5, but you're right. It's tough to put a defensive player really in any sport in towards the top of the list, because it's just like, not that people disrespect defense, but I don't think it's really top of mind. In terms of the top 3, you can shift them all around, and I hate you for taking the words out of my mouth, because I literally was just about to talk about how Christian Pulisic has a lot of time left. And so although I would put him higher on the list, I do think that there is time left to not only prove himself, but to also do more and collect more and cement himself more as one of the greatest U.S. men's national team players of all time. Now, if we're talking about the best players from the United States of all time, I think that's a different kind of conversation than the one just about simply USMNT. But yeah, Clint Dempsey, Landon Donovan, I mean, you can arrange those guys any way you want to. I mean, in terms of just sheerly for the U.S. men's national team side, I think it's Pulisic and it's Donovan 1A and 1B. I know Clint Dempsey, but I mean, they're really all top 3 are interchangeable as far as I see. I think number 5 is where it gets a little interesting for me. Obviously, you saw that I had a different number 5 on my list, and we can get into that a little bit. But
too for us there, Angelina, as well. So that way we can show what that number 5 looks like. Again, his is very similar to mine. The only difference is you slotted in Claudio Reyna, and you've moved Landon Donovan and Clint Dempsey down a spot each, and moved Christian Pulisic up 2 spots.
Yeah, well, I think with Claudio Reyna, I think it's interesting to mention that there's a reason why Gio Reyna gets as much, attention on the U.S. men's national team side as a lot of players do. Not only because he's talented, I think he's very talented, but I think what his dad was and what his dad represented really carries a lot of weight. He was on that quarterfinal team with Landon Donovan in 2002. When you think about American soccer players in success overseas, success abroad, he was one of the first players to really have a successful career abroad. He wasn't the first that went overseas, but in terms of the level of success and the level of experience, I mean, spells in Germany, he was in England, he played at Man City, he was also in Scotland with the Rangers for a little bit. You know, he was a star on the U.S. men's national team, and again, he was a big part of that squad that nearly went to the semifinals in 2002. But in terms of international success, he was also very good. You know, he was named to the team of the tournament in 2002 alongside Ronaldinho. You know, he kind of separated himself in a lot of ways. Number 4 on the list, Tim Howard. Again, I think that goes without explanation. We talked about how long, you know, in the Belgium game, which I know they ended up losing that game, but I think that's, in terms of individual performances, that's one that stands alone. What, he had 16 saves, I think, total in that game against Belgium. Not to mention his service time over in the Premier League. I mean, 500 matches. It's unbelievable to think that, you know, if we were talking about the other day, you know, if you were to take any American player and put them on any other international side, would they have a chance? I think in the day, Tim Howard would have definitely had an argument to be a starter on one of the top 10 sides in the world, you know, and they would have done perfectly okay. It just makes you think what we could have done maybe if we were a little deeper in other spots. You know, looking elsewhere on the list, you know, Clint Dempsey, Landon Donovan, again, just so interchangeable. There's just so many different ways that you can break down, you know, what way you can go with that. You know, I think Landon deserves, you know, the higher spot on the list simply because he is the all-time assist leader with 58, joint all-time top scorer with 57, you know, 4-time Gold Cup winner, country's second most capped player at 158 appearances. The only player that has more is Kobe Jones, which, you know, I don't think Kobe Jones is at least top 5 when it comes to the U.S. men's national team. The only thing about Donovan was, you know, he wasn't, I guess, the best Premier League player of all time. You know, Clint Dempsey had a little bit more in terms of acumen and resume when it came to the Premier League, but, you know, flair, grit, knack, swagger. I mean, Dempsey had all of that. I mean, 60 goals, most from the left wing, 6 remarkable seasons. You know, and so he was, you know, obviously Clint Dempsey was what he was. You know, he was huge. You know, he was a part of that same squad. We talk about signature wins, but signature games too. I always think about he was a part of that group that advanced out of the group of death, you know, that tied Portugal, you know, and kept the U.S. unbeaten against Portugal in major world tournaments. Now, the number one, listen, it's difficult for me to argue that Christian Pulisic doesn't deserve the number 1 spot on the list simply because, you know, yes, I think the international career is going to end up being better than any other American player that's come before him. But I think sometimes, since he is an active player and he still is only, 25, 26 years old, and we know that there's still a lot more in the tank in terms of what he can prove, I think sometimes we get frustrated with the things that we've talked about the last couple of episodes and what's going on in the media, that we maybe lose perspective on just how good the kid is. I mean, I know he scored on day 1 of the Serie A season, but, you know, even when it comes to the men's national side. Now, again, if we're talking about the best soccer players from America, that's one conversation. I think it's Christian Pulisic without a doubt, even the fact that he's still in his mid-20s. But I think it's easy to forget about what he has done with the national team because we just kind of want to push it aside as, yeah, well, these aren't wins over major countries, or, you know, we're not coming close to a World Cup. You know, for the U.S. men's national team, I think his legacy is still cemented. 3 CONCACAF Nations League titles. He's broken numerous records. And again, in his mid-20s, including becoming the team's youngest captain when you go back to 2018. Now, mind you, that was a team that, you know, we know how that experiment went. They didn't make the World Cup and lost to Trinidad and Tobago and everything else like that. But in terms of from the moment he got into the program at just 20 years old, and once he just broke his teens, I simply think he's the best that has ever come from this country. And when it's all said and done, you know, as you mentioned, get to the end of the line in terms of his playing career, we're going to look back and really get a perspective on why he was the best to ever wear the uniform. Now, again, this 26 World Cup is going to go a long way in deciding what the public opinion is on this list moving forward. But I think without a doubt, in terms of what he still has yet to prove and what he's already proved just in his mid-20s, I think Pulisic is going to be the far and away number one on that list. But again, there's different players you can move around that top five. I think Claudio Reyna deserves a spot in the top five just because I thought when we talk about trailblazers, he was one of them. Obviously, we talked about the impact of Tim Howard, but those top three, I mean, in a perfect world, we can get them all in their prime and all on the same team and really have some fun. But we know that that's unfortunately, that's not how that works. You know, Pulisic met Clint Dempsey kind of at the end of his career, and now he's the guy. So what do they do in 26? Who knows? But that's kind of a look at my top five.
So the question is this, is Christian Pulisic the best to ever play for the U.S. men's national team? Is he? And I know that we've put him obviously in the top five. I still think there's an argument that he's not number one yet. And again, mainly because it's like this, right? Landon Donovan and Clint Dempsey have both finished their careers, right? And if I look at other sports, would we say, now LeBron James is still playing, right? There's this argument that LeBron James is the best player to ever play the game of basketball, and there's valid arguments for him versus Michael Jordan. We can go back and forth about that, but I don't think that we were putting him at number one, you know, in comparison 3 years into his career. I think that there was conversation about him becoming number one, but putting him at number one, you know, 5 years into his career, was that a thing? Was Kobe Bryant in that conversation at that point in time? I feel like there's no doubt that if Christian Pulisic stays on track, continues to have a fantastic career overseas, and also at the same time comes back here and does great things for the U.S. men's national team, scores. Again, he has to score, he's got 32. He's got to score, 18 goals? And he's officially the leader. So he's got 18 goals. Now, if he doesn't do that, if he finishes his career with 40 goals, 25 assists, will he go down as the best? I argue no, because statistically, right. But again, I'm asking this question because I know we're having this conversation about how great he is, and there's no doubt. But I've heard a lot in my lifetime, and I've had teachers say it to me too. John, you have a lot of potential. you know, you have a lot of talent. You have a lot of potential, Mr. Turner. I'm sure you've heard that too, once upon in your time, right? And you've got a lot of potential, Mr. Nathan Wengler.
Right.
But will anything come from that potential? And
right.
do we have enough within his body of work to say he is the best to ever wear the jersey?
I think we only have certain short segments. So in order to, you know, I think if this was to go on forever and ever, and this was just like 3 hours long, I feel like if I were to put up on a board, you know, what my U.S. men's national team, what my fantasy lineup is, you know, I would like to include all three of those. But again, if you were to sit me down and go, hey, you get one choice, right? You get Landon Donovan, or you can get Clint Dempsey, or you can put Christian Pulisic. You get a selection of one of those three. In terms of the body of work at just the age that he is, and again, he's been shattering records left and right. Now, he doesn't have those two, right? He's not all-time assists. He's not all-time goals. He's not quite there yet. And again, there's a lot of years yet to be played. But if you were to make me, hey, you got to come up with a fantasy team right now, the first player that comes to my mind that I want to lead the way on that team is Christian Pulisic. And because again, the body of work, and we already talked about the Nations League finals and the Gold Cup championships. I just think because he took his break this year, it's just left a sour taste in people's mouths. And that's the part of the conversation that I think, recency bias is a real thing in sports. I mean, we see, you see a quarterback in the NFL win a Super Bowl. All of a sudden we're start talking about, especially when it comes to Mahomes, like, oh, okay, he's the GOAT. No way he's not the greatest of all time. But, if he flames out or if he gets rolled on like he did in the bowl last year against the Eagles, all of a sudden we're having a different discussion. I think recency bias is a big thing. So I think him opting out of Gold Cup, I think them kind of falling on their face in the Nations League has left a sour taste in a lot of people's mouths. But, I think it's easy to say that, but then also forget to look back and see some of the setbacks and the blunders and, the break that Landon Donovan took, the sabbatical he took once upon a time. I think it just left a sour taste in people's mouths to where we've started to question just how good is he. But I don't think it's a question of just how good the kid is. I think he's still a freak. I just think it came at the wrong time, wrong place, wrong situation in order to say I needed a break, and that just made a bunch of passionate fans really upset. I consider myself that. And you talked about being passionate about all this. I think you and I both want to see them succeed. And we're kind of arguing in the same direction, but that's exactly it, And so I think if you were to if we're making a fantasy team here, I'm probably picking him as number one. Now, again, in terms of body of work, you're right. I mean, there's an argument there that you can't put him as the far and away number one. I just think that with what he's already accomplished at his age, I don't think there's any doubt that there's a more talented player that's ever worn that jersey before. I just don't think that there's anybody else that, in terms of, again, you can talk about numbers and longevity and what they've done in tournaments and everything like that. I just don't think there's anyone that our country has produced that is worn the red, white, and blue that has a bigger ceiling than one Christian Pulisic. I just don't. It'd be really hard to convince me of that. I think
if the three of them played at the same time, I think we'd be having a completely different conversation about what this team could do.
Oh, absolutely.
Right? Could you imagine
100%
and Landon Donovan along with Christian Pulisic on the team
yes.
at the same time? I mean,
yes.
I don't like.
You talk about getting
grit,
forward
the toughness.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, you talk about being fast and playing on the counter and being fearless and everything like that. And I think when Pulisic is in a mode to where he needs to be fearless and put his body on the line, he's absolutely going to do that. I mean, I always go back to that goal he scored against Iran once upon a time in the World Cup, and my man nearly lost out on future kids in that game. I mean, the way he put his body on the line to score that goal, I think between him and the tactical nature of his game, and then you toss in someone like Landon Donovan, who was soft-spoken in the media, but the way he played was just like, he was like the Tasmanian devil. And then you factor in Clint Dempsey and his grit and his toughness and his swagger. That'd be a fun team, man. But I just think that's the biggest thing. Like, they got to get some of that back. I feel like those teams used to have that, especially when you had Landon and Clint on the same exact team. Like, they had that swagger, they had that going for them. They need some of that back on that team. Bad.
No question about that. When we come back here from our next break, we'll get into the ACC men's soccer preseason polls. We've done it for the women. We're going to jump into the men here. This is the first one in Division I that we've been able to see. The rest of them are going to be launched this week. Horizon League, Missouri Valley, as well as the Big Ten and the Big East. So we'll continue to keep an eye on that. But coming up, ACC men's soccer preseason polls right here on Inside the Game.
Experience the thrill of the game like never before with NSN's Game Rewind.
Dive into full match commentaries enhanced with cutting-edge dynamic graphics,
letting you relive the highs and lows of your favorite matches in astonishing detail.
Whether it's a championship win or a legendary play,
NSN Game Rewind bridges the past and future with a broadcast experience designed to captivate.
Call 586-304-4405
and start watching today.
Welcome back here into our Inside the Game podcast here on this Tuesday morning, August the 19th. Jonathan Turner alongside Nathan Wangler. We're going to dive into the ACC men's soccer here in a moment as we dive into this. One thing I'll say is we've been doing these preseason kind of previews across the state, and we've obviously opened it up to the entire country as well. If you have a college, high school, club team, amateur team, and you'd like for us to do a preview on your team, all you got to do is head over to the nationalsoccernetwork.com/preseason survey. And right from there, you fill out all the information about your team. It comes to us. We write an article about you. We actually make a video as well. I have 4 videos to record here today in regards to previews. We probably have more like 19 of them, but we'll start with 4. But so far, I think we've done 6 of them on our website. And we'll continue to do that for any level of soccer in this country where we can highlight you and your team on our platform. Clemson, though, was tabbed as the 2025 preseason ACC men's soccer favorite, and we'll dive into that right now. Nathan, as we take a look at this, again, Clemson pick number 1, the reigning ACC champs. Wake Forest pick number 2, Pitt 3, Duke 4, and then you got Stanford, SMU tied for 5th. North Carolina, 7th, NC State, 8th, Virginia is 9, Notre Dame at 10. Remember, Notre Dame used to be they're independent in football, but they are part of the ACC here in the men's and women's soccer. Syracuse at 11, California at 12, Virginia Tech at 13, Louisville at 14, and Boston College at 15.
And so when you read the article that the ACC released, it's actually kind of hilarious because it shows you just how much parity that the ACC actually has. It goes, quote, reigning ACC champion Wake Forest earned the most coaches' votes to win the title, right? So the coaches themselves believe that Wake Forest is probably most likely to emerge with the title. They had 5 of them and was second in the preseason poll. So they ended up second despite getting the most votes. Pitt matched Clemson with 4 first-place votes, while Duke notched a pair of first-place votes as well. So that's 4 different teams who at one point in this process or another ended up getting a first-place vote. So if that doesn't tell you exactly where we are in terms of the ACC landscape and just how competitive it is to win that conference, that should kind of give you an idea as to what exactly we're looking at, So, and they also, obviously, they have their preseason watch list. Shout out to the ACC. Very good write-up on this. And I don't know if you have an opinion on who might finish, who might emerge from all this. I know, like I said, I didn't really break any news with some of the other ones we did because I do like some of the favorites, but I want to talk about Clemson for a second because they're a young team, but the most dangerous thing that I think you can have, and we talk about roster construction all the time and just how much that matters to teams, is have a mix of young up-and-coming talent, but also have a solid core and a foundation around those young up-and-coming players. Clemson has both of that. That's something that they have been able to combine wonderfully. I mean, you think the 2024 ACC Freshman of the Year, Ransford Guyan, I believe maybe I'm pronouncing that wrong. I apologize if I am pronouncing that wrong, but Gyan of Clemson, he's back on the team. But, something else that I think that we need to recognize is that this is a squad that's returned a lot of players from that 2023 national championship team. Overall, they have 15 returners. 9 of those are back from their championship run in 23. And there's a lot of notable returners, most of which Joseph Andima, who's in goal for them. I mean, he was huge, and he was one of those notable returners that's coming back to Clemson, so you don't have to worry about what's going on in between the pipes. You got Remy Okanolola. Jesus, they got some names on this team. Nathan Richmond is back, forward James Kelly, so it seems like your forwards are pretty shored up in terms of the experience there. And so this is a team that, in terms of when we talk about, who might emerge from this conference, and there's a lot of great names that you can point at the different teams, but when we mention Clemson and where they are in terms of not only the players they're bringing back, who again have that valuable experience of going and being in a national championship in 2023, you also have the Freshman of the Year. You're also solid in goal, right? So you're not dealing with that or any sort of instability when it comes to that angle. I think Clemson definitely has an argument for being the team that emerges out of it. But you look at Wake Forest at the same time too. I mean, Cooper Flax, a senior for that team, on the ACC preseason watch list. You know, he was the named to the United Soccer Coaches midfielders watch list a week ago. I mean, that they've been on top of him. Led the Deacs in points in 19. He had 9 goals in 2024. Started in all 24 matches. So he's been someone that has been an absolute nightmare to opposing defenses, and he's going to lead the way for Wake Forest going into this season as well. So I think Clemson's probably going to have an argument for the best team, but again, it's just such a toss-up when you look at this league across the way.
So, you know, Clemson and Wake Forest saw each other in a quarterfinal match in the College Cup last year. Wake Forest coming away with a 2-1 victory and moving on, where they lost to Ohio State. Actually, I think it was around. In Ohio State beat them. They went on to the semifinals and lost to the eventual winner. They played Marshall in the semifinals, I believe. They lost to Marshall 1-0, and then Vermont went on to win in the final. You know, these polls are what they are. You know, let's be honest. A lot of this has to do with what you did last year, right? Wake Forest won. Wake Forest won the league last year, and they are number 2 on this list. Clemson, which lost to Wake Forest in the round of 16, I think it was Sweet 16. They lost in that game to Wake Forest. So it's clearly based on returning players. You know, you're bringing back and your roster and what coaches feel, because again, these coaches are the ones that vote for this. And so I'm a firm believer, you know, that time will tell, but these coaches typically know what's going on, right? And so when you put a team at number 1 and number 2, number 3, any one of those teams in the top 3 could win this thing. And not saying that someone at number 8 couldn't win it. I mean, to sit here and say that, you know, looking at the list of teams who are in here to, again, looking at 15 on this list, which is Boston College, to see here as a Boston College has a fighting chance to hoist a league title trophy in the championship. I don't know if they do, but you know, this is one of those things where when we've talked about these polls in the past, is that there's traditionally not a ton of surprises that we get in these polls. They're pretty spot on. What you might find is like a sleeper in there. You might find a North Carolina who's at 7. And to say that North Carolina is a sleeper is kind of funny, right? But to say a sleeper in North Carolina might have a standout player who just no one knew, you know, and that player just goes off. And now they get some game-winning goals, and they get some great goalkeeping, and hey, now they're making it into, you know, the ACC tournament, and then anything can happen. Because last year, North Carolina, the women's side, they did not win the ACC tournament, right? They won the whole damn thing, as they have done many times in the past. But they didn't win the whole thing. And I think they ended up finishing 4th in the ACC last year. And so you think about that. So anything can happen once you get into the tournament. And so I think Clemson's in a great place. They got a great program, great players. But again, we talk about the ACC players to watch. NC State has Donovan Phillips. He just finished with a golden boot in the USL League 2.
Dude's a menace.
Right.
Yeah.
Huh?
Yep. I said he's a menace.
He is a menace. And so he's a player that scored 17 goals in like 16 games. So if this player can go off this summer, I mean this fall, there's a team in NC State that could make some noise. And so and NC State was listed at 8. So if I put a sleeper, I'm putting my money on that team.
Shows
NC
how
State
deep
might
they
make
are.
some noise. So that would be my thought process on that. But yeah, so
shows how unbelievably deep the ACC is, and that's kind of what we were talking about. I talk about another team that matched Clemson in votes. Is Pitt. Defensively they're one of the best. They had the Defensive Player of the Year in 2024, rather. Casper Sevenby. Again, however you pronounce that, I don't want to misspeak or have a slip of the tongue. So again, if you guys are listening out there and you're like, this idiot's not pronouncing it the correct way, please, don't quote me on any of that stuff. But Pitt's a really stout team on the defensive end. It's going to be tough to sneak anything past them. The one thing I will be interested to see, though, is it doesn't take long to separate the contenders from the pretenders sometimes in these situations. There's going to be a lot of early season games that end up deciding what direction we go in terms of who's going to emerge from that pack and who might end up falling behind. So there's a lot to be decided there. I think there's a lot of stuff to like about Pitt. Like you talk about Clemson's deep, but yeah, man, I mean, you and I called games with Donovan Phillip. I mean, just from a physical, athletic perspective, it's rare that when you watch games in those leagues that you see someone who's just head and shoulders above everybody else in terms of what he can do just with his body alone. And I think Donovan Phillip is one of those players. I think he cemented himself as one of those players, especially for a club like Flint City, who has a reputation of winning games and producing good talent. So again, it's a toss-up, but I think that just makes our lives so much better because it's almost like Christmas Day. You don't really know what you're going to get out of the ACC. Some of these conferences are really easy to be like, yeah, they're going to run away with it. ACC is a different story, man, because it's just so far spread out in terms of what they do present to the college landscape.
Yeah, no question about it. Coming up next here on Inside the Game, the Michigan High School Soccer Coaches Association announces its MHSA teams to watch here for all 4 divisions. We'll have those live after this.
Are you ready to create unforgettable moments for your audience? NSN offers professional live streaming and full broadcast services tailored to your needs.
From high-quality production to exceptional coverage,
We ensure your game or event becomes a spectacle to remember. Book your next game with us today
call 586-304-4405 to schedule your broadcast.
and let NSN bring the action to life like never before.
Welcome back here into Inside the Game. Jonathan Turner alongside Nathan Wangler and our producer, Angelina Roach. And we have, there she is. She's putting herself on.
Nice. Hello.
Oh, it's good for TV. I can't.
Got to make your cameo. You gotta show the people your face at least once or twice. That's good. That's fine. That counts, Angelina. That counts. We'll give you that.
Remind everybody, tomorrow I will not be with you on the air. It'll be Mr. Wangler and Ryan Glinsky handling all the duties. A little different look and feel tomorrow. When we aren't in studio, we do a virtual thing. And when I'm here in studio, we'll always try to pull off what we consider to be a very good production. But tomorrow I have to head out to a meeting, and so will not be here. But with that being said, we want to dive into the Michigan High School Soccer Coaches, and I think to kind of like tee this up, and so we give it the right notice, and so to speak, and notoriety. We've long time relationship with the Michigan High School Soccer Coaches Association. We started with the ranking show here back in 2022, and we did that for 3 years. And we just found that. With the amount of time and effort and work we were putting into it, that it was pulling us away from some other things that is equally important. And so what we don't want to do is to not give the players of Michigan, where this all started for us, their due. So we will always try and do that. And so every week there will be rankings that are released from the Coaches Association here in Michigan, and we will hopefully on Mondays. We will highlight those teams, and highlight those players as best we can. We've also asked, and we'll continue to push this out on social media. We've also continued to ask all of you, whether you are a player, a coach, or a parent, to send us your highlights. And so on our website at thenationalsoccernetwork.com, on that same page where the preseason survey is located, there's also links for you to go and submit your highlight videos. When I say submit them, like, so you have a goal, that your game-winning goal, submit that to us so that we can create highlight shows relative to what's happening across this country, not only from the things that we produce, but the things that are also being produced by phones and VOs and huddles and you name it. So we'll have more information on our website about that. And we are excited to be able to showcase and highlight players, whether they're at the lowest levels in this country all the way to the highest levels. So without further ado, let's dive into the Division 4 teams to watch here in Division 4. They're on your screen right now. Last year in 2024, who won the MHSAA Division 4 state championship? Who did that is my question. Do you remember who did that at all or no?
Oh man, you're really putting me on the spot here. It was hold on. It was Western Michigan Christian, wasn't it?
Was it? I'm actually googling. I'm actually looking at myself because I remember the first three. I don't remember Division 4.
Oh my goodness!
I'm looking it up as we speak. But as I do,
it was. I'm pretty sure it was.
Right here, Division 4. It's on my screen. I got it right here. It was Muskegon Western Michigan Christian. That is correct.
Yes,
so
thank you. Okay, all right. I was
Division
right.
4 state championship. They did that so over Plymouth Christian Academy by a score of 1-0 last year. And so, but yes, Royal Oak Shrine been very, very good over the years. We look at this list up and down. Harbor Springs, Grosse Pointe Woods, University of Liggett, which plays in the Catholic League. They've always been very good. Matter of fact, David DeWahey, I believe this is his last year of coaching at Grosse Pointe Woods, University of Liggett. He does both girls and boys. This, I think, is his last year. Clarkson Everest has always been good. Oakland Christian, Patrick Race does a fantastic job with that program. They're based in Auburn Hills. What I would say is that the biggest hurdle that they have is that they have to face Clarkson Everest in almost every single district final that they ever have. And so it always comes down to those two teams. And when they get out, it ends up being a battle between them and Plymouth Christian, right? And so trying to find a way to get out of that district has been somewhat challenging for Oakland Christian, but they can find a way to get through that. There's a potentiality of them getting their way to a state final. Bloomfield Hills Roper, that Ed Sack was a longtime head coach. He's now the athletic director there. Again, another good program. Leland. Kalamazoo Christian, which on the girls' side has just been unbelievable, right? We talk about that a lot. So this is a good list. These are teams to watch. This is not there's no order. So Allen Park, obviously, this is all in alphabetical order. So these are just the teams to watch in Division 4. Let's take a look here now at Division 3. We'll put that up on your screen. Remember, Notre Dame Prep.
Very quickly, I wanted to say congratulations to David Dahey on a great career, and if this is the final go around, it's been a long good career. So congratulations on all the hard work and all the success as well. So congrats, David.
So Notre Dame Prep won the Division 3 state final last year by beating Elk Rapids by a score of 3-2. Me and you, Nathan, we were there. That was our first ever state championship in school history. That was fun to be a part of.
Yeah.
And, just a great program. Again, they're a team to look out for again this year. They lost some players, right? They lost some players on that team. Williamston, who's been very, very good over the years. Macomb Lutheran North, which I believe was actually in Division 4 last year. I'd have to look at all my numbers. Hartford, who we wrote a preseason preview on, they made it all the way to a state semifinal last year before bowing out. Frankenmuth, who's been really good over the years. Flint Powers Catholic. Detroit Country Day. That's another team. Again, you look at these teams top to bottom on this list, and any one of them could make a long playoff run and could make their way to a state championship. So another really good list, and I'm interested to see how this will shape up here in weeks to come as the rankings start to pour out here starting next week.
I'm excited that we got a little crosstown showdown going on in the middle of the rankings. And look at that, Grand Rapids Catholic Central, Grand Rapids West Catholics, one of the oldest rivalries, at least over here on the west side of the state. I know every time you bring this show in, we got that sky cam view of, you get Detroit and then you get Grand Rapids. And two biggest cities in the state. And over here on this side, I mean, that's one of the oldest ones. It goes all the way back to the late 40s, early 50s that those two have been competing and going head to head. And we know about the reputation in the sport of football. Obviously, West being one of only two schools that's had a 5-peat in school history, right alongside East Grand Rapids, the only other school to do it. And obviously Grand Rapids Catholic Central, they've had their number the last 3 years, but it's been cool to see the soccer programs on the trajectory they're on as well. And I know that West has consistently been getting better in that regard. I know obviously Catholic Central, they got one of the most beautiful facilities on this side of the state. I mean, it's gorgeous. I actually saw them out practicing yesterday. And so one of the teams had to be on the game field. The other team had to be on the practice field. So, it's a real shame when you have one of the best facilities in the state. But, yeah, that'll be a cool little matchup to pay attention to. And, I hope that Elk Rapids can get back to the end of the line. I loved seeing that team's grit and that team's fight last year. I just think Notre Dame Prep was too stacked, man. I think the way that they moved the ball, I think the way that they handled themselves, they were far and away the best team. So it's a reason why they ran away with it. But yeah, a lot of exciting prospects on that list for sure.
That it was, as we'll head now into Division II. And Warren De La Salle, Thayer Mukhtar, who had his 600th career win here just this past week, one of the all-time greats in high school coaching, not only in the state of Michigan, but across the country, I would imagine. They won over Forest Hills Northern by a score of 4-1. And that was their first state championship. Well, again, they've moved around in divisions. They were Division I for a long time. I believe their last one was 2000 and going back here, 2005, when they beat Warren De La Salle. Sorry, when they beat their Birmingham Brother Rice in a final 1-0. But they're also one of the only teams, I think, in the history of the MHSA that ever ended in a tie, which was back in 2000, where Brother Rice and Warren De La Salle, at that time, up until the state championships, you'd have to play to get a winner, and so you would end in a penalty shootout. But in the state finals, they did away with that for a number of years, and so these teams are the first ever team to have a dual championship in the history of the state. So that game was 2-2 back in 2000. So. But, yeah, looking at this list, though, top to bottom, Allendale, Cranbrook. I mean, Cranbrook's been very good. They've yet to get a state championship. They have been good. They've made their way to a state final twice in their history. That eludes them, that state championship trophy. You talked about Grand Rapids Christian's listed twice. My bad. That might have been a rush job on my part this morning on the graphics. But Holland Christian is in there. Hudsonville Unity Christian on the girls' side have been unbelievable over the years, but they're listed in there. Walled Lake Western is on this list, and so you talked about kind of crosstown rivalries. Forest Hills Central, Forest Hills Northern. That's also on the side of Grand Rapids. And so those two teams are obviously fighting as well. Dearborn Divine Child, which has been very good over the years as well, have made their way into this teams to watch here in Division II. Let's take a look here at now Division I. And last year we saw for the second time in 3 years Rochester Adams claiming a state championship. We saw it 2 years before that when they won not over Rockford. It was over Rockford. They beat Rockford by a score, I believe it was 2-0. In that one. Last year, they had a chance to play. Again, they beat Byron Center, so West versus East Side. Rochester Adams under Josh Hickey, that's his third state championship, one with the girls and two with the boys. But again, they're in that top teams to watch. Troy Athens, which won it back in 2023. I was there for that game as well. That was their first state championship in 2019. They're in this list. Utica Eisenhower, another good team. Saline, which has been phenomenal over the last number of years. Again, a state championship right now eludes them. If we look back, too, we talk about the last 5 state championships in Division I. Rochester Adams, Troy Athens, Rochester Adams, Okemos, Detroit Catholic Central, right? So back to 2020. Then 2019, Troy Athens, right? So you look at that. So 1, 2, 3, 4 of the last 6 state champions have come out of the OAA Red. And sure as anything, what do you have there? You've got Clarkston. You've got Rochester, Adams, Troy, Athens. So 4 out of the 8 teams in the OAA Red are listed there in teams to watch. Oxford, which made it all the way to a semifinal last year. Right. I mean, that's a team that's in the OAA Red as well. Didn't get on this list. This is a team that could very well make some noise as well. But you've got Catholic Central, which is in there. Great program. Byron Center, again, when they lost to Adams last year in that final. So a very, very good list here, again, of top 15 teams or top teams to watch.
And I think this might be the opportunity for some of the other teams in the Red to really see their chance to take over and do something special. I think about that Troy team because I look back at when I was calling those games against them and Adams. Adams kind of reminds me of Notre Dame Prep a little bit. Now, it's tougher to be a team that's head and shoulders above everybody else in Division I simply because you're dealing with the depth of, just how many good players that you have. But you look back at, last year in the all-state selections and, the first team in Division I. I mean, just look at the laundry list of names for Adams. I mean, Adams. I mean, they have 5 players on the Division I team. Troy Athens has 1. Troy doesn't even have 1. I mean, great team all around, but, you got Reed Dennis, you got Anthony Pisatini, I think that's how you pronounce that, Alex Rosine, Logan Lilla, Salvatore Donato, who's going to be playing his college ball at Ohio State. I mean, just top to bottom. They're just littering that list. And I mean, you even go further down the line. I don't want to take anything away from Troy. They certainly had some players in the top 2 teams, 3 total in those top 2 teams. But Adams is losing out on a lot. But what I will say is that the thing is about the good programs is they find a way to some rebuild, some programs reload. And when I think of Rochester Adams, that's a program that, again, they don't rebuild, they reload. They just find a way to continue to churn out good players left and right. And those are the most dangerous programs because even when they do lose a lot of the sting that they had from a season ago, which I think will certainly be the case for Adams, I think there will be a little bit of a drop-off. They still have a lot of depth and a lot of players coming in back behind them. But I think if there's ever been an opportunity, probably the best opportunity for someone like an Athens or a Troy, this is it. This is your opportunity to really kind of, take the reins, if you will. I mean, Daniel Cadu, who made that first team for Athens, is the only junior to make first team all-state selections last year. Everybody else was grade 12. Everybody else was a senior. So he's back for another season. And then you look at, obviously some of the other players they have on that list. Just one, I guess, in the top 2 teams, but, Troy has 3. That there's a lot of players that are to like that'll be back on those teams. I just think, Adams is losing out on a lot. So this is the opportunity. If you're anybody else in the Red, this is your chance to really make a mark and try to make a run at things. And I think there's other good teams on that list. I think Portage Central could have a good run. I think Northville's looked really good. I think Oxford has obviously, built a reputation. That there's some other ones in there. I like TC West last year. I don't know how much losing Aiden Orth is going to impact them. I'm sure it will. And obviously we know the competition's not as deep up there, but I think the field's a little bit more open in terms of Division I this year than maybe what it was last year. Cause I think Adams was just far and away the team. And we said that early on and it turned out to be true.
That it was. And that is your teams to watch here in Division 1 through 4, according to Michigan High School Soccer Coaches Association. You can check all that out, although that list, the complete list, on our website, thenationalsoccernetwork.com, or on our social media. But that's a wrap here on episode number 140 here on Inside the Game. Nate, I'm not here tomorrow. What's on tap tomorrow?
And well, let's see what we got going on. I got the running tally on here. I know we got a lot of stuff going on. Obviously, we'll have Ryan back on the show, or at least I'm anticipating having Ryan back on the show. There's been some news lately about Canada requesting more World Cup games due to political unrest in the United States. They actually just released the hotels and the sites in which teams are going to be staying in the U.S. And let me just say, some of them are better than others, but still some pretty nice places. But it'll be interesting to cover that because I do think there's a lot of opinions flying around about what the situation is in the U.S. right now. There's a lot of people that are uneasy. And again, if this is something that the U.S. can't handle, and if they botch it in 26, that might be very detrimental to our chances of ever hosting a major tournament ever again. But so we'll be talking about that a little bit. Maybe have a guest on the show. I know I've been talking to Amir Bektis. He's a Michigan grad. He used to cover soccer at the University of Michigan. Now he's working as a sports journalist here in Grand Rapids and doing some different stuff, actually calling games for Forest Hill Central, Paul Kramer over there at FHC. So might have him on. There's a lot of good stuff to talk about, but yeah, we'll be back in the saddle tomorrow.
Awesome. That's a wrap here on 140. Don't forget to subscribe, like us, share this with your friends and family, and come back here tomorrow, same time, same place at 9 a.m. right here on Inside the Game.
The Flint City Bucks are Michigan's top soccer franchise with 4 national championships, 9 conference titles, and 15 Great Lakes Division titles. They have produced 107 players for Major League Soccer, and they focus on attracting top talent and shaping soccer's future. Michigan Bucks Academy joins MLS Next new competition tier starting in September of 2025. This offers elevated levels of play and flexibility for high school participation. The Academy will provide premier development, high-performance training, and exposure to scouts through regional tournaments and MLS Next events. For more information on tryouts, training programs, and key updates as we prepare for our first season in MLS Next new tier, visit MichiganBucksAcademy.com.